This is page 13 in our notes. I think we skipped page 12, which is fine. My colors today are black and red. This is a 5th grade review. We're going to do a lot of 5th grade reviews before we get into the standard NS1 on dividing fractions. So at the top you can write 5th grade review. Today we're going to review equivalent fractions, mixed numbers, and improper fractions. All things that you would need to know how to do before we get into the standard NS1 on dividing. So change colors here. Equivalent means equals, so I'm going to write that. Equivalent means equal or equals. So that's kind of like what we were doing with ratios. We made equivalent ratios, equivalent fractions. You've done this before. This should be a review. So if I have 3 out of 10, we can make that equal to 6 out of 20. And the way we do that is timesing both by 2. So you have the first ratio, or the first fraction, 3 to 10, is the same as 6 to 20. What if you times it instead of by 2 by 3? Then you would have the same thing. We'd have 9 to 30. So you could take it times 3 times 3. So all of these fractions are equivalent. Let's do another example of equivalent. Let's go 1 over 2. We call this 1/2. What's equivalent to 1/2? There's lots of things. You could say 2 to 4 is equivalent. How do you get from the first fraction to the second one? You take it times 2. What if you took the first fraction times 5? Then you would have 5 out of 10. You could show that by taking it times 5 and taking the bottom times 5. Lots of equivalent fractions to 1/2. You could say 6 out of 12. You could say 100 out of 200. Those are all equivalent fractions. So that's kind of a review on equivalent fractions. Draw a line. Move this up a little bit. The next thing we're going to review is mixed numbers to improper fractions. How do you take a mixed number and change it to an improper fraction? And I've shown you this on the calculator, but this is the paper pencil version of doing this. How do you take a mixed number to an improper fraction? So we're just going to do an example here to show you. I take the mixed number 5 2/3. Notice I wrote the 5 big and the 2/3 is the fraction there. So how do I make this an improper fraction? Some of you call it the backward C. I kind of call it a check mark method. It looks like this. You're taking 5 times the 3 and then you're adding the 2. 5 times the 3 is 15, and when I add 2 to that, I get 17. 17 over what? The same denominator there, 3, is your denominator over here. So you've changed 5 2/3 and you've made it 17/3. So a mixed number, if I want to give it a terminology here, I'm going to use the other color to box it in, is just a whole number and a fraction. Whole number and a fraction. What was the example of the mixed number I had just given you? I had given you 5 2/3. So I'm going to switch colors. The example I just gave you of a mixed number was 5 2/3. What's an improper fraction then? An improper fraction, why is it improper? It's because the top number is bigger than the bottom number, and we don't normally leave our answers as improper fractions unless I ask you to do that. So the example I gave you of an improper fraction on this problem was 17 over 3. So why is that improper? The top number, we call that the numerator. So I'll give you the term numerator, is bigger than the bottom number, and the bottom number we call the denominator. Denominator. We don't leave our answers as improper fractions. So I'm going to put a star in our notes. Do not leave your answer like that. 17/3. I'm going to circle that and put a slash through it. Don't do that. Don't leave 16/3. Don't leave it with the numerator larger than the denominator. So don't leave your answers like that. Not unless I ask you to change a mixed number to an improper fraction and leave it. You would never leave your answer like that. You would want to turn it back to a mixed number. So how do you change an improper back to a mixed number if you're not supposed to leave them like that? We're going to do that next. So draw a line in your notes. Hopefully this is a review. So how do you take an improper fraction, and I'm going to say, how do you take that and change that back over to a mixed number? Well, let's do an example of that. So improper back to a mixed number. So how about I give you an improper fraction like 43/6. So 43/6. You can say 43 divided by 6. So what that looks like is 43 divided by 6. Notice the 6 is on the outside. 6 goes into 43 7 times. You get 42. When you subtract, you have 1. So we take our 1 up as a remainder, and we make 7 and 1. 6. Notice I didn't add a decimal or a 0. I'm not trying to change an improper to a decimal. I'm trying to change an improper to a mixed number. So I take my remainder, it goes up on the top, over the 6, what I'm dividing by. So 7 and 1 6. So you just changed 43/6 and turned it into 7 and 1 6. Some people can do this in their head when they're dividing, but I would like to see the work. Let's do another example of that. How do I change an improper to a mixed number? What if I give you the example 7/5, that's improper. This number on the top is larger than the bottom. You would take 7 and divide by 5. 5 goes into 7 one whole time, which gives me 5. When I subtract, 2 is my remainder. I want to make this a fraction. The 2 goes on the top over the 5, which is what I was dividing by. So we were able to change 7/5 to 1 2/5. So this is how we want our answers, not like that. So the homework that you are going to practice for this particular assignment is a worksheet, and the worksheet is an improper to a mixed number and mixed number to an improper. So I'm going to write that here. Your homework is a worksheet. You are going to do 6 problems on each side, and then you can check with a calculator. That way you're practicing how to change mixed to improper with the calculator. Why are you doing 6 on each side? You're going to do 6 that are mixed numbers to improper fractions, which is how I abbreviate it, and then you're going to do 6 improper fractions over to mixed numbers to practice. So you're going to practice paper pencil, and then you're going to practice with the calculator. Again, this is a review to the 6th grade standard, which we're going to get into, which is dividing fractions.